Hello everyone and welcome to CRAMSURG, Clinical Research Appraisal and Methodology for Surgical Trainees, where we pick a paper fresh from the press on a hot general surgical topic. We review it for you, we present it for you, we critique its methodology for you, and provide top-of-the-field expert opinion and teaching on research appraisal and methodology. My name is Gio Perrin, and together with Professor Sababala Subramanian and Maria Digby, we bring you CRAMSURG from the wonderful region of the Yorkshire and the Humber.
So we're going to carry on with our how-to guide on statistical tests, and we're going to talk about per samples t test today. Usual disclaimers: I'm not a statistician, and no, I am an expert in statistical software. I just enjoy using both. A quick visual summary of what we've discussed so far. So we talked again and again about assumptions, particularly normality and skedasticity in the past few sessions. And I think it's key that you guys remember what those are. Probably the most important thing we've been talking about. We briefly touched on students T, ANOVA, Welch ANOVA, and Chue ANOVA, and how to run them on Jamovi. Today, we are going to move a bit further in this discussion. But first, we're going to run a little recap. I'm going to try and take you on a sort of science fiction journey in a dystopian future where, the cost of studying has gone up incredibly in the past few years. Students have gone out and protested violently against the cost of university, and junior doctors are really, really underpaid. In this fantastic, imagine this world where all of this is happening. There's two people. One is Maddie. For her privacy, we're going to call her Mad. And one is Nith, and for his privacy, we're going to call him N1. And these are random pictures of them taken. And because they are out of money and cash strapped, they decide to start a business producing cannabis. And they want to know if they're doing a good job. Nith is running the plantation in his house, and he has decided last week to plant 2 rows of cannabis, one at 25, one at 27 degrees. And he wants to know if they are different. So he drops a text to Maddie. And Maddie answers, well, how many grams did each plant give you? Now, Nith, why do you think, sorry, N1 for your privacy, why did you think Maddie asked you how many grams did each plant give you?
Because we need numerical continuous variables to make our calculations.
Yeah, that sounds good. What test do you think Maddie's going to make you run?
Student T.
Yeah, probably right. Obviously you go count your grams, and you go back to your phone, and she goes, oh, remember to check assumptions. Now, you do feel that you should know about these assumptions, and you also don't want to ask her because she takes ages to answer. So what assumptions are we talking about here, Nith?
Normality and skedasticity before running a student T to make sure the data is normally distributed and the variances are not massively different.
Absolutely, yes. So for normality, in Jamovi, we run a Shapiro-Wilk test. And for skedasticity, we run a Levent test. And Jamovi will prompt you to run those when you are trying to run a student's T. Now, let's move on slightly in our recap. You suddenly remembered that you had another row at 23. So one at 23, one at 25, one at 27, because as we all know, in your world, heating costs a lot of money. So you ask her, what should I do? What do you think Matt is going to say?
He's now got 3 samples with 3 sets of continuous data. He should run an ANOVA. I'm sure he will remember to check the assumptions before running it.
Absolutely. And you will remember to run this to check the assumptions, right?
Yes.
Yes, you will.
Yeah.
Perfect. And that's what she said. Welch, if the variances are different, remember to check. Right. Now, suddenly, you are walking around your apartment, and mostly because of the smell, you realize that you have Googled the best fertilizers for cannabis plants, and you decided to buy the top 3 to give it a go. So you've got a bag of bat guano, some containers so that advanced nutrients grow, and some manure. And you used 1 each for the 3 rows that you have planted at different temperatures. And now you want to know if these 2, these 3 different fertilizers and these 3 different temperatures do have an effect on your cannabis grow. What do you think you should run?
I could run a 2-way ANOVA.
Yeah, so you've got 3 samples, 3 sets of continuous data, and 2 variables you want to look at. So you could run a 2-way ANOVA as we discussed. Again, provided that all your assumptions are met. Now, let's move on slightly. You woke up in the morning and you had a look at your plantation and you realized that your plants were rather floppy, as you can see on the screen. Because you are a bit OCD with your cannabis plants, every morning you count the leaves and you realize they've lost some, and you gave them some fizzy water. You're a bit worried that you made things worse. So what type of situation do you think this is?
Well, there is only one population, one intervention has been performed on it, and the data can be collected again. Sounds like paired samples?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a scenario where you could potentially run a paired t-test, which is what we're going to talk about today, very briefly. Right, so if you look at the overall arching plan, we're still in continuous data. We're still looking at normally distributed data, and today we're going to talk particularly about paired samples. So we're going to have a look at the demonstration with Jamovi. Just a brief history of the pair sample t-test. It's a bit of a repeat, as it comes from Steele William Gossett, also known as Student. As you remember, he used to work at Guinness, and he used to publish a lot of stuff in Biometrica. A brief further note that's fairly interesting, given that we talked about Fisher last time. Fisher, Gossett, and Pearson were good friends. And he said that, Gossett was very good at being friends with them because they both had a massive ego. At some point, Gossett had an admirer that followed him around in the streets and was complimenting him. And his answer was, well, Fisher would have discovered it all anyway. So quite a peculiar character, a bit more of a private man compared to his fellows. Now, let's get a bit more into the topic. What do we mean by paired data? Paired data is basically happens when each data point that you've got in one group has a corresponding and meaningfully connected data point in another group. And this all sounds fairly abstract, but the most common example that gets brought in is you have a bunch of patients that have high blood pressure, you measure the blood pressure, you do some treatment, and then you measure the blood pressure again. And you've got paired data. You've got pre-treatment and post-treatment blood pressure. And the concept is relatively straightforward. And similarly to what you do with a T student, you do have some assumptions that need to be respected. Assumption 1 is, and always will be, normality. That needs to be checked all the time. So just remember that. Other assumptions that are relevant are, obviously, the samples have to be paired. Otherwise, you won't run this particular type of test, and the samples should be big enough. Is homoscedasticity here relevant? Well, not really, because the samples are, as we said, paired with each other. So variances are not necessarily tested and don't need to be tested. So to give you a practical example from my own data set, as we've been doing so far, I'm going to give you an example. As you remember, and you must know by now because I've talked about this 5 times, as part of my dissertation, I collected data about papers that were advertised on Twitter by publishing journal. For the purposes of running a per sample T, I decide to compare the number of retweets from the same papers, first when they've been tweeted using simple text, and then when they've been tweeted using simple text and a picture. So there has been an additional intervention, which is using the picture, and let's see if that gave it a boost. So let's have a go. Let's have a quick look at this demonstration. So Jamovi helps you a lot. T-test is there. Per samples T-test. hard to make it easier than that, isn't it? And because I've kind of ordered this data set in a clever way, I've got retweet. I've got retweets after picture. There you go. As long as you know where to find your data and as long as you know what you're testing, it will be relatively straightforward. Your assumptions check are here. Obviously, because we are running paired samples, scarcity variance test is not there, but you can run a normality test, which again suggests that the data is not normally distributed, and therefore you should not be using this test really. You can also change your hypothesis. So we're testing for equal. You can test for measure 1 bigger than measure 2, measure 1 smaller than measure 2. In all honesty, you can identify what the direction of the effect is by simply looking at the data. But the math behind the test is slightly different depending on which one you choose.